Good morning. I'm Dawn, that farm wife here at Daybreak Farm, and today I thought we'd go ahead and can up some chili. You're probably thinking, oh, it's March, we're not eating a lot of chili, it's still spring. Well, for us down here in the south it is, maybe not for you up north. But what I'm doing is stocking up so that next winter and fall I've got chili on hand that I can just cook up real quickly on those nights where we need a meal and I haven't put anything out, or we just too tired from working, whatever, to make a full meal. So I wanted to cook up this chili and can it up. So let's get started, okay? First things first, we're gonna use 3 pounds of hamburger, and I'm gonna start cooking that up. And I've already soaked my beans. I did the quick soak method on my beans. So the quick soak method of doing the beans, I've already done it. By the time I get done with the hamburger, they'll have soaked for an hour. So what you do is put them in a pot, cover them with cold water, bring them to a quick simmer, and then turn off the heat, cover them, and let them soak for at least an hour. And that is the quick soak method if you've forgotten to put your beans out the night before and soak them that way. All right, so let's get our hamburger cooking. This beef is from one of the steers that we have processed here on the farm. Well, we didn't process him here. We grew him here. But he just was processed back in January. Oh, let's turn the heat on, that would be good. I'm using my big cast iron pan to do this because I'm just going to add everything to it. Basically, you can just make chili, however it is you make chili, and then can it. You got to keep in mind for the ingredients and anything you can that you need to process it to whatever ingredient has the longest processing time. Like for instance, mine here is the meat. So we'll be processing and canning for 75 minutes. Then get our handy chopper tool. I'm done browning the beef, as you can see, and I'm going to drain the fat off of it. I've got all the fat drained off of my beef, and this is where chili gets super easy. You know, even if you just needed a quick meal, I kind of feel like it's one of those dump and go kind of meals. So the ground beef is drained. Gonna add about 1.5 cups, maybe a little bit more of onion, or chop up 2 onions and call it a day. And I'm also gonna add some chopped peppers. I had these in the freezer. We use these usually for sausages and brat bowls is what we call it. We fry them up for brats. I'm gonna give that a little stir. Anytime you add onions to a dish, man, the smell just is always delicious. And those peppers are great too. So I'm also going to add 2 quarts of tomatoes that I canned last year. And those are whole tomatoes. You can use chopped, crushed, whatever you want. I'm lazy when I'm canning. I just can them whole. Plus, they're really easy to break up when you're cooking. good stir. I just kind of like to stir after each ingredient. That's just me. Then I'm going to add some seasonings. So what I did was, this is chili powder, some of my jalapeno that I dried last year from my garden, garlic powder that I dried, onion powder that I dried, and some cumin. So I put that, oh, did I say 3 tablespoons of chili powder? So I mixed that all together, oh, pepper and salt. All right, so I just wanted to go over those seasonings again that I used. It was a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of salt. No, I take that back. It was like 3 teaspoons of salt. 3 tablespoons of chili powder. I did a teaspoon of my dried jalapeno, a teaspoon of dried garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of ground cumin. So that was my spice mix. You can do whatever you want. I just happened to have those ingredients, and I wanted to use up some of the things that I dried in my from my garden. So this is how my chili's looking so far. Everything's in there mixed up. So the next step, I'm gonna get my beans out. I'm gonna drain them and then put them in my pot with the chili, and then it'll be ready to can up. So how quick is that? So now everything's in the pot, and I'm just gonna give it a little taste test. So I put the beans in. These were pinto beans, by the way. I also added a can of corn. I don't know about canning corn that's already been canned, but we like corn in our chili. So that's in there. And then I also added a can of tomato sauce because I just wanted a little bit more tomato sauce going on there, and it looks perfect. But anyway, I'm just going to give it a little taste. The beans aren't cooked yet. They'll finish cooking when we're canning it. I really like all the flavors I got going on in here. It's probably the best jar or pan of chili, pot of chili I've ever made. Love the tomatoes. It's not too hot. Really good. All right, so let me get my canning, my pressure canner ready, get my jars warmed up, then we'll put the chili in the jars and go ahead and pressure can it. All right, let's get this canned up, or jarred up. Let's jar it up first, how about that? This is gonna be 1 inch of headspace and a process time of 75 minutes. But let me check that just to be sure, because I think my thing said 75 minutes for pints, and I want to make sure that it's the same amount of time. And I'm doing quart jars because this is about enough for a meal for me and my husband. It's about, would be 2 cups per person. And of course, as always, when you are canning, we're gonna debubble. So when I'm done filling up all of the jars, I'm just gonna run a little narrow spatula down the sides of it, make sure there's no gaps or air in there. Ooh, I'm really hoping I get, well, maybe I'm gonna get 5 quarts. I prepared 7 jars because I'd really like 7 jars, but all right, let's just debubble, and then maybe I will decide if I'm going to try to put that in. I hate to dirty up a jar. But I'm kind of hoping I have enough just for a little pint jar so that I can, maybe we'll just have some for lunch today just to see what it tastes like. Let's get back, let's do that. Let's get a little pint. What did I do with my pint? So a little pint jar. Maybe a little bit out of there. Y'all know I get a little anal about my headspace. Some things with canning stay pretty constant. Why am I doing that? Headspace amounts may change, but you're always gonna wipe the rims of your jars. You're always gonna debubble, and you are always gonna vent for 10 minutes. And I will show you that venting process here in a minute. All right, so like I said, you're always going to debubble. Did I debubble that one? You're always gonna wipe the rims. And I've got vinegar, white vinegar on here. Since we had hamburger and it's a little greasy. You wanna do everything you can to make sure those jars seal up. This is a little dirty jar. Now this was a hot pack, so you wanted to start out with hot jars, hot chili. All right, then we're gonna put lids. Well, this worked out anyway, so I've got a jar that I can test, and I'll have 5 jars of chili. Finger tight. All right, perfect. So my canner you put 3 quarts of water in it to begin with. And I always do that. I put the 3 quarts of water in, I put my jars in there so that they can start warming up. And then while I'm getting other things ready, my jars are warming, and then I take them out and go ahead and put in whatever it is I'm canning. So that's my method. And as always, check your lid to make sure that you can see through that vent hole before you start processing. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my lid on. There's an arrow here and an arrow on the lid. You line them up, the lid goes on, tighten it up so they match right here. Now I'm going to turn the heat up to high. And when the steam starts coming out of my vent hole really good, I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes and we'll vent for 10 minutes. That's what venting is. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but I have a full head of steam coming out. And so now I'll set my timer for 10 minutes for that venting process, like I mentioned. So while my canner is venting, I just thought I'd show you how I cleaned up my cast iron pot. So I just washed it with soap and water, and then I dried it off. It's on this burner. Actually, then I greased it with some lard, put the lid on it, which I also did some on the underside of the lid, and I just turned the burner on high. I can probably turn that down low. And it's kind of smoking a little bit. I'm just doing that to try and keep it seasoned. This is a Lodge cast iron pot or Dutch oven. And they're supposed to be pre-seasoned, but they're not seasoned very well. So this is just my way of trying to get that good seasoning coat on it. All right, so my timer's gone off. I just wanted to show you the jiggling before I actually turn off the heat. This is what you want your pot to do during the processing time. This is a weighted canner. I'm gonna turn my heat off. And now I get to walk away from it because, turn that timer off. Because now I'm just gonna let it cool down and lose pressure all on its own. So I don't know if I failed to mention that it's 10 pounds of pressure. And I ended up processing for 90 minutes because I went looking around to make sure that the time I was doing it was correct. So 90 minutes of processing time. And now we'll just wait for that to cool off so I can open it up and show you the finished jars. But in the meantime, I want to go outside because it is beautiful outside. There's the view from my window. And we've had a bunch of rain today. You can see my cows. Apparently they're all decided to gather around a little puddle out there and have a drink. All right, I'll be back in a little bit. All right, time for the big reveal. So always slowly open your lid. Lift it away from you. It's been so long, oh, there's no steam in here. That's gonna get me. And let me find my tongs. Or my jar lifter, rather. Jar lifter, oh my goodness. Looks like I had some siphoning. Look at that. Nice jar of chili. So that's 5 meals right here. 5 meals that I can open up a jar, either put it in the microwave or heat it up on the stove top, and I've got a meal. But that, I think that turned out great. Well, thanks for joining me today. It's been a good day of canning. I don't know if you're like me, and well, if you do can, when I get going on this, when I can something like this, I want to keep canning all day long, but there's other things to do. So I had to work out in the garden today. I had to do some work stuff. So yeah, I mean, once I start canning, I'm like, oh, I can can this today and I can can that. I don't have time. I wish I did. I keep telling my husband I've got too much to do at home to be going to work. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.